Picking up, right after Ayanokoji's fight with Nanase, they are approached by Amasawa, who's holding a weapon. Nanase explains that Amasawa was the unknown presence watching them when they were investigating Komiya's injury. Amasawa, however, denies being the person that attacked them. Ayanokoji is curious as to why she's here, though Amasawa avoids the question, asking if he would like to share a tent with her. Nanase blocks her path, but Ayanokoji lets her through upon hearing the words, White Room. Amasawa reveals that she is in fact the White Room spy, but she claims not to be his enemy, as she just wants to be near him. He accepts her explanation, and they discuss what it's like to be a normal student before Amasawa caresses his cheek while whispering, "Don't lose to anyone." After she's gone, Ayanokoji inspects her footprints to find out it's the same as the one he found at the incident. That being said though, he doesn't believe that someone from the White Room would be foolish enough to leave a trail, so he doesn't believe she's the one who attacked Komiya. They then find an additional set of footprints, prompting Nanase to want to run a GPS scan, but Ayanokoji stops her because anyone can avoid detection by simply breaking their watch. The school then sends out a mass message canceling all destinations and tasks for the day, though to make up for this, the final day will reward 2 times points. The two of them move on to discussing Nagumo's strategy, which is to have the third years all travel together as a way to monopolize the tasks. Nanase then declares that she'll do whatever she can to protect Ayanokoji before heading into her own tent to rest. The next morning, Ayanokoji makes it to his first 2 destinations before completing a task in F7, where he just so happens to bump into Horikita. She explains that Sakaya Nagi informed her of the plan, and that she recently won a task, allowing her to increase her group size. They both, however, are low on food, so they ignore their next destination in favor of completing another task. After completing his final destination of day 9, we finally get a glimpse into Ayanokoji's strategy. You see, the leaderboards for this exam only shows the top and bottom 10 groups, so Ayanokoji is aiming to hover around 11th place. Then when the leaderboard is disabled on the final 2 days of the exam, Ayanokoji will make his move, securing as many points as possible and climbing the ranks. He comes to an open area to find a single tent with the owner nowhere to be seen. It's after setting up his own that Ibuki steps out of the forest, obviously displeased to see Ayanokoji. She immediately enters her own tent, refusing to speak with him, though after a brief warning, Ayanokoji opens it up to find a beyond exhausted Ibuki chewing on jerky. She steps outside, demanding to know his ranking, but he refuses to answer. She exclaims that she will beat her rival Horikita, just as Ayanokoji notices her extremely dry and cracked lips. You come to find out she's been out of water for more than a day, and that her watch's first health warning even went off a few hours ago. Due to this, Ayanokoji offers to trade some water for a portion of her food, and she can't refuse after getting a glimpse of the crystal clear liquid. The following morning, Ayanokoji sets out for his destination and begins running periodic GPS scans just as a way to keep himself under 10th place. Though when he arrives, he finds Kiryun, who asks if he's the person that's been stealing some of her early arrival bonuses. He feigns ignorance, and they discuss how Nagumo may go about attacking Koenji in the near future. She then brings up the fact that Ayanokoji, surprisingly, isn't in the top 10. He claims not to care, though she definitely suspects that Ayanokoji isn't far behind her. It's later that same night that Ayanokoji is awoken by the sound of a girl crying, which turns out to be Shiranami from Class 2C. By using a GPS scan, he leads the way back to her group, where he asks to speak with Sakaya Nagi. After discussing a certain situation, Sakaya Nagi tells this group to let Ayanokoji have the radio. On the 10th day, you find the third years discussing how they can interfere with Koenji in order to guarantee Nagumo's victory. Kiriyama decides to take command of 6 groups, which he will use to surround and prevent Koenji's movement. It's the following morning that they approach Koenji, politely asking him to simply take the day off. Not so surprisingly, he doesn't listen, so Kiriyama tries to persuade him by explaining that his life will just be easier if he obeys Nagumo. Koenji, however, politely excuses himself, sprinting away, leaving the third years completely stunned. The next day, they confront Koenji once again and attempt to threaten him with violence as the third years surround him. Koenji informs the group that he's not into boy love and proceeds to calmly walk straight into Mikatani. The third year is unable to hold back this bulldozer of a person, prompting this massive group of third years to attack. After a few minutes of dodging, Koenji simply walks away, without ever laying a hand on his now exhausted pursuers. That same evening, elsewhere on the island, Ayanokoji just so happens to find Ishizaki in Hiyori's groups. He sits down beside Hiyori, and they just relax while casually discussing the special exam. Ayanokoji even decides to camp with them tonight, though he springs awake upon hearing Nanase calling his name. She came here tonight to warn him that the first years will be launching a coordinated attack against him tomorrow. He asks who's in charge of this plan, and she reveals the mastermind to be Class 1C Tsubaki. Upon waking up the next morning, Ayanokoji immediately runs a GPS scan, but he doesn't find anything suspicious among the first years. He actually completes this day without any interference, leaving him to wonder if Nanase was given incorrect information or if she just lied to him. Jumping back in time a few days, you see Nanase meet back up with Hosen. He asks how her plan went just before a boy from Class 1C arrives to deliver a radio. Utomiya is seeking Hosen's help, but of course he doesn't care. Hosen just guesses that Tsubaki is there as well, so he asks for her plan, but she's hesitant to answer since Nanase is around. After a few moments of discussion, she reveals that her plan is to use 5 first-year groups to restrict Ayanokoji's movements, thus allowing Hosen to have a one-on-one brawl with Ayanokoji. Hosen is definitely on board with this plan, but he is worried that the school will notice and interfere, causing Tsubaki to publicly declare, as the mastermind, she will take the full blame for whatever happens. Back to the present, it's now the 13th day, and Tsubaki is readying herself to begin the operation. Yagami then arrives carrying a tablet, which he claims has the same destination route as Ayanokoji. He's more than happy to lend it to her under the condition that he receives 5 million points upon Ayanokoji being expelled. Tsubaki is impressed with Yagami's proposal, but she declines, revealing 3 more tablets which all contain Ayanokoji's route as well. Then at 7 AM, she begins the operation to trap and ultimately expel Ayanokoji. Upon waking up, Ayanokoji runs a GPS scan once again, and notices the first years seem to be closing in around him. Ultimately, he decides it's best to ignore his designated area of C3, in favor of fleeing from the first years. Now, Tsubaki plans to lead Ayanokoji into B4, and orders her lackeys to move accordingly. Though for some odd reason, 3 of her groups just stopped moving, which allowed Ayanokoji to escape. Tsubaki calls for them on the radio, but she doesn't receive a response. She runs a GPS scan, revealing that multiple groups of second years have intercepted all 5 of her underlings. The most interesting part, though, is that these second year groups contain a mixture of all 4 classes. Yagami is completely baffled by this, but Tsubaki realizes that someone must be commanding them. However, that person should have no way of knowing that the GPS scans don't show everything. Back at the port, you find Sakayanagi, leisurely sipping on water as she flawlessly commands the second years. She thinks back on the night that she received the unexpected radio call from Ayanokoji. You see, she'd informed him that Ichinose has been acting rather strangely, followed by Ayanokoji revealing the existence of the 20 million point bounty. Now, Hosen is currently wearing a broken watch, as he swiftly closes in on his prey. He catches up to Ayanokoji, only for Ryun to step into the light, as Ayanokoji disappears into the trees. Hosen asks if Ryun is the commander behind the second years, but he turns out to just be a hired mercenary. Ryun throws the first punch, which is effortlessly caught in midair. Hosen delivers a crushing headbutt, followed by a gut-wrenching kick to the stomach. Ryun falls to the ground in pain, but nevertheless just keeps running his mouth. They briefly discuss Ayanokoji's hidden strength before Hosen absolutely pummels his opponent into the dirt. Ryun's bloodlust hasn't waned at all, as he successfully lands a light kick, only to be mercilessly beaten once again. Even after his watch's final emergency alert rings, Ryun still continues talking shit. Hosen charges forward looking to end this slaughter when Ryun latches onto his body, just long enough for Ishizaki and Albert to each restrain an arm. Ryun begins his counterattack on his now completely immobile foe, hitting him again and again and again and again. Hosen roars that Ryun only won because it's the 3 versus 1, prompting Ryun to state that he's not dumb enough to fight a gorilla by himself. This is a lesson to Hosen that it takes more than brute strength to stand at the top, immediately followed by the finishing blow. With that, Ishizaki and Albert, who broke their watches beforehand, both run away before the school can arrive. After hearing the results of the mission, Tsubaki can do nothing but pout, as she regrets not attacking Ayanokoji by herself. You then find Kito, who's been sent by Sakayanagi, seeking out the person who is commanding the first years. As he approaches their camp, he's confronted by Otomiya, who grabs hold of his jersey, threatening to turn this into a brawl. Kito throws a punch, Otomiya dodges, causing the radio to fall out of his pocket onto the ground. Tsubaki's voice then comes through the radio, so Kito takes his leave, assuming Tsubaki to be the commander. Though once he is gone, Otomiya changes the radio channel, informing an unknown third party that the second years now know that Tsubaki is in control. It's now the final morning of this special exam, and Ayanokoji is thinking back on yesterday. He successfully avoided being captured, but wasn't able to reach any of the destinations. Sakayanagi did inform him that the first year seemed to have given up, but now he's mildly worried about his mere 119 points. Since it's the final day of the exam, he's unable to check the rankings, so he swiftly heads towards the next destination. Though along the way, he answers a radio call to find out that Ichinose has completely abandoned her group, without any communication as to why. Then while checking his map, Ayanokoji notices that the tasks for today all seem to be located on the southern half of the island. Then it just so happens that his next destination winds up being the area furthest away from the port, and to make this even more suspicious, he hasn't seen another student in quite a while. Ichinose then dashes toward Ayanokoji. She explains that she overheard Tsukashiro discussing his plan to expel Ayanokoji, and that it'll take place today at I-2. Ayanokoji says, "You shouldn't worry about me, because I'm your enemy." But Ichinose blurts out, "I love you." He's unable to return her feelings at the moment and begins heading toward the trap, because Tsukashiro will definitely punish Ichinose if he doesn't arrive. Though it's only a moment later that he's greeted by the student council president, Nagumo. Ayanokoji brings up the 20 million point bounty, which Nagumo explains to be Tsukashiro's idea. Ayanokoji mentions that Koenji is putting up a pretty good fight, but Nagumo claims to have him under control, followed by Ayanokoji attempting to walk away. Nagumo refuses to let him go, so Ayanokoji forcefully pushes him down. Ayanokoji declares that it's in Nagumo's best interest to back off, but Mr. President doesn't take orders. Ayanokoji throws a single punch, followed by Nagumo hitting the ground. Jumping back in time to this morning, you find Horikita ignoring her destination and marching toward I-2. You see, she received a cryptic note warning her that Ayanokoji is in trouble in that location. Ibuki randomly appears, demanding to know Horikita's score, and after a lot of pestering, Horikita finally gives in, revealing that she's currently in the lead. They then look up to see Amasawa blocking their path, and after a short discussion, Ibuki goes away. Amasawa blatantly refuses to let Horikita by, so they both prepare to fight. Horikita is sent flying across the ground in severe pain, even taking a few minutes to regain her composure. She immediately meets the ground a second time as she begins to see a similarity between Amasawa and Ayanokoji. After standing back up, she braces for the incoming fist, which stops inches from her face due to Ibuki standing between them. Horikita sends an invite to combine their groups, which Ibuki reluctantly agrees to, because if one of them gets knocked out here by themselves, they will be immediately expelled. Though even after attacking together, they're still unable to land a blow, prompting Horikita to come up with a plan. Ibuki refuses to go along with it, causing Horikita to exclaim that Ibuki's refusal to cooperate with others is the exact reason why she's so weak. A now extremely pissed off Ibuki follows the plan, unleashing a flurry of blows towards Amasawa. Horikita stays just out of reach, waiting for the correct moment to strike, leaving a perfect opening for Ibuki to land 2 strong punches, putting Amasawa on the ground. Horikita immediately mounts her opponent and notices numerous large welts and bruises on Amasawa's stomach, which definitely were not caused by this fight. Amasawa then breaks free, stating that her job here is finished. A moment earlier, Ayanokoji just crossed the border into I-2. However, he didn't receive any points for arriving to the destination. He makes his way to the center of the area, finding Tsukishiro and Shiba waiting for him. Shiba politely asks for Ayanokoji to come quietly, while Tsukishiro points out they will take him by force if needed. They briefly discuss Ayanokoji's experience at this school, until Shiba confirms that Amasawa successfully stopped the approaching students. Tsukishiro is glad to hear that the traitor did something useful, and the adults begin to close in on their target. They work together, trying, but failing to restrain Ayanokoji, as he nimbly dodges while running away. With his back to the ocean, he finds an opening to launch an attack at Shiba, but feels his hair stand on edge as he barely ducks under Tsukishiro's fist. He realizes these opponents are yet to show their full power, and he steels himself for the upcoming very long fight. When out of nowhere, Kiryun arrives, curious as to why 2 faculty members are attacking a student. Ayanokoji asks if she would be willing to lend him a hand, to which she says,
"It's my duty to protect an underclassman."
Ayanokoji takes the fight to Tsukishiro this time, landing a strong hook to his cheek, followed by multiple quick jabs to the nose. An uppercut puts Mr. Director on his ass, who looks down before slinging a clump of sand at Ayanokoji. Tsukishiro takes this opportunity to plunge his fist deep into the sand, wrenching out an object, but Ayanokoji immediately restrains the arm that's now wielding a stun gun. Tsukishiro signals for the boat to commence the last resort, but it suddenly speeds away due to Chabashiro and Mishima Sensei arriving. Mr. Director just can't figure out why the teachers are here, so Ayanokoji explains that someone might have submitted 2 false reports about incapacitated students. Tsukishiro is out of options and calmly goes with the teachers, and Kiryun asks what the heck all of this was about. Ayanokoji blames it on a complicated family situation, and they make their way back into the forest where they bump into Horikita and Ibuki. Many hours later, now on the cruise ship, Ayanokoji stumbles upon 2 unexpected people having a conversation. You learn that it was Sakayanagi's idea to recruit Ryun to take on Hosen. She then informs Ayanokoji that he can pay her back, with a completely fair rematch. Later on during dinner, the Class 3A teacher takes the stage, proudly reporting that every single group survived the full 2 weeks. He then reveals the bottom groups to be expelled, which surprisingly all turn out to be 3rd years. Tsukishiro then begins announcing the winners of this uninhabited island special exam, with Sakayanagi and Ichinose's group taking 3rd place. The battle between 1st and 2nd, however, was neck and neck until the very end, with Nagumo's group successfully securing a hard-fought 2nd place. This means Koenji won the 1st place victory all by himself, which rewards Class 2D with a massive 300 class point increase. Horikita is very much impressed, but not exactly happy, as Koenji now has total freedom to do whatever he wants without any repercussions. Ayanokoji then thinks about how Nagumo probably would have taken 1st place if he would have just focused on the exam instead of chasing after Ayanokoji.